Hey guys, welcome to another movie trailer review with your boy Austin Walker. Today's trailer will be the new Spider-Man No Way Home trailer. There are a lot of expectations for this movie, and this trailer had already delivered so much for what fans wanted to see while not giving up too much content, so fans could still be surprised when the movie releases in December. So let's start in the beginning. The trailer starts with a shot of Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, who is played by Tom Holland. It seems to be a very emotional scene, and I believe it to be where the name No Way Home comes into the title. The movie seems to be taking place immediately after the effects of the Spider-Man movie Far From Home, where Mysterio had revealed Spider-Man's real identity, aka Peter Parker. Due to this, Peter is basically under scrutiny and seems to be at some point hunted by the police. Peter said to MJ, who is played by Zendaya, that the only week he felt some sense of a normal life since he had been bitten by the spider was the week MJ knew that he was Spider-Man. But with the world knowing his secret, it made his life hectic to say the least. I find this very interesting because he has only ever mentioned being bitten by the spider once before, which is a very glanced over detail for that's how he got his powers. Compared to the other two Spider-Man franchise movies, the first one being played by Tobey Maguire and the second one being played by Andrew Garfield, both of these movies had a scene where you see them get bit by the spider and then inherit their powers. So the fact that Tom Holland's Spider-Man is finally taking the spider bite into play, I'm excited whether or not they'll show a flashback to the moment that started it all for Peter Parker. Peter Parker contacts Doctor Strange, who is played by Benedict Cumberbatch, to perform a spell to make everyone in the world forget his true identity, so he can go back to living a semi-normal life. But the spell didn't work properly and failed and ended up having big consequences. This leads to the huge point of the movie. This movie will be introducing the multiverse. The multiverse has briefly been discussed in the Disney Plus series Loki and What If, but this will be the first time we see it on the big screen. What the MCU is doing with this film, which is huge, is they are bringing back characters from the other Spider-Man franchise movies. You have Alfred Molina, who played Dr. Octavius, also known as Doc Ock, in Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 2 back in 2004. You have William Dafoe returning as Green Goblin, also from Maguire's Spider-Man. Then you have Jamie Foxx taking the mantle of Electro again, but this time he looks a little different, being redesigned to fit a more comic accurate costume. Jamie Foxx's Electro was the villain from Andrew Garfield's The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Then we also see Thomas Hayden Church return to play Sandman and Rhys Ifan returning as the Lizard, aka Dr. Connors. This is huge, seeing characters from 3 different franchises all coming to the same big screen. But the million-dollar question is, are Tobey and Andrew reprising their roles as Spider-Man for No Way Home? According to Tom Holland, he has stated numerous times they are not in the film, but there have been many leaks with evidence saying they are. Some of these leaks were even seen in the trailer, so is it really hard to believe that the ones about the Spider-Mans isn't true as well? In Venom 2, at the post-credit scene, as well, they tied in the Sony franchise with the MCU franchise and made Tom Hardy's Venom affected by Doctor Strange's spell. So I also believe we will see Venom in this film as well. Now back to the rest of the trailer. We see a new suit we haven't seen in the movie when we see Peter fighting Electro. It's a black suit with wires poking out. My opinion is that it's a suit to absorb the energy of Electro. We also see that Dr. Ock fights Holland's Spider-Man, that his face is revealed, and then he says, "You're not Peter Parker."
You're not Peter Parker.
This answers a lot of fans' questions from the first teaser trailer whether or not Dr. Octavius knew that Tom Holland was Peter Parker or not. This line also confirms the existence of a Tobey Maguire Peter Parker somewhere in this merged MCU Spider-Verse. I think this makes a Tobey Maguire cameo a lot more likely. Later in the trailer, fans see what looks to be a Captain America tribute where the Statue of Liberty is located. We also see J.K. Simmons returning as the role he played back in Maguire's Spider-Man, J. Jonah Jameson. Myself and many other fans agree recasting him again for the same role in the MCU universe was a great call. Now, after figuring out all these villains are coming from their certain deaths from their universes, Peter Parker doesn't want to send them back to where his Doctor Strange does. This leads to a little battle between Strange and Spider-Man. I think Peter has already experienced a lot of death, and after having Mysterio's death on his hands, I think his mentality is that he doesn't want any more blood on his hands. Now we see a face-off of Spider-Man versus Electro, Sandman, and Lizard. I think the other Spider-Mans are actually supposed to be in this scene and were just edited out for the trailer. I believe this because in the Brazilian version of the trailer, the scene is long enough to where you see Lizard's face move like as he were just punched or kicked in the face. It would also make sense that the battle would be a 3 versus 3 rather than a 1 versus 3. I agree with the decision for the MCU to keep the other Spider-Mans out of the trailer and add suspense and surprise to when we finally see them in the movie. But at this point, I feel like they are basically guaranteed to be in the movie. Then we see MJ falling off the tribute construction, and the framing is very similar to Gwen Stacy's fall in the Amazing Spider-Man franchise, where she ended up dying because her neck snapped due to Andrew's Spider-Man not being able to catch her in time. Sorry for the spoiler if you haven't seen that movie yet. So for them to call back to this, and I have a theory that Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man is actually the one that's going to save MJ in the scene and not Tom Holland's, who is we actually see dive to try and save her in the trailer. Now the last part of the trailer is we see cracks forming in the sky around the Statue of Liberty, and Strange says they are starting to come through and I can't stop them. I have a theory this is referring to other Spider-Mans from other multiverses, or just other multiverse threats that we have been building up for with the other MCU projects like Loki and What If. The cracks also resemble the cracks from King's Mansion in Loki, and they have glass crack features from What If. The effects of this movie will definitely be talked about in the next Doctor Strange movie, Multiverse of Madness. I can't wait for December 17th when this film is finally released and we get to hear the iconic Marvel intro, and then we finally see the finished and final product of everything that has been heard and seen till now. What I believe the MCU is doing with this film is the first of its kind to combine different franchises into a single movie is insane and just unheard of. Just like in Avengers Endgame when fans screamed and cried when everyone came back in the final battle with Thanos, as soon as we see another Spider-Man other than Holland's in this film, the theater will go crazy. Most of the MCU's biggest fans are teenagers and people in their 20s. So if you think about it, we have been seeing these characters from our childhood. And so to see our childhood heroes reprising their roles, I know the fans are going to have some attachment to seeing them when they come back on the big screen. For a movie trailer, we received a lot, and so I can only expect so much for when the movie finally comes out. I want to thank all of you for listening to this movie trailer review of Spider-Man No Way Home. Till next time, and remember, with great power comes great responsibility.